Today, we're really getting into something fascinating, the deep influence of Zen Buddhism on Japanese culture.
Right. And we're using Daisetsu Suzuki's Zen and Japanese Culture as our main guide, but also pulling in philosophy, history, art.
Yeah, things like ink paintings, calligraphy, those visual elements too.
Absolutely. And our goal really is to explore how Zen became more than just religion, how it actually, seeped into the very way people saw beauty, thought about ethics, even how they practiced certain skills.
It shaped the whole cultural landscape, didn't it?
Fundamentally.
And it's just wild when you think about it. It originates in India, grows big in China, and then in Japan, it just takes on this unique life, influencing almost everything.
It really is remarkable.
Okay, so to start us off, what exactly is Zen in this context, if we're saying it's more than doctrine?
Well, that's the key thing Suzuki emphasizes. Zen isn't something you just learn from a book or define neatly. It's fundamentally about direct experience.
Getting beyond words.
Exactly. Breaking free from our usual ways of thinking, our analytical habits. It's about a different kind of knowing.
So not just intellectual understanding.
No, not at all. The goal is enlightenment, satori. And that's not like figuring out a puzzle. It's described more as a flash of intuition, a sudden shift in perception that kind of bypasses the intellect.
And there's a strong sense of self-reliance tied into this, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely central. There's that powerful saying, do not rely on others, nor on the reading of the sutras and shustras, the scriptures and commentaries.
Right.
Be your own lamp. It puts the responsibility squarely on your own direct insight.
Be your own lamp. I like that. It really grounds it in personal experience. Now, what about the Tao? How does that fit in?
So the Tao, the way, in Zen, it's seen as the underlying reality, the always-so-ness of everything. But crucially, Zen finds it right here, in the everyday.
Not in some separate spiritual realm.
No. The sacred is the mundane, in a way. It's woven into daily life. There's that great little story Suzuki tells the master whose student is hungry and thirsty. What does the master say?
Just eat and drink.
Exactly. The profound truth, the Tao, is right there in those basic ordinary actions. And this very practical, grounded approach that really resonated with the Chinese mindset first.
Okay.
And that pragmatism then paved the way for it to integrate so deeply into Japanese culture later on.
Right, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So connecting that foundation to Japanese art culture specifically, how did Zen start shaping aesthetics?
Well, its contribution was huge. It really changed the whole mood, the whole set of specifications, you could say, for Japanese culture. It wasn't just spiritual life, but cultural life, too.
And concepts like wabi and sabi emerged from this.
Precisely. These are so key. Wadi, for instance. Originally, it had kind of negative meaning to poverty, loneliness, that sort of thing.
Okay.
But Zen aesthetics transformed it. It came to mean an appreciation for simplicity, for naturalness, even for imperfection.
Imperfection, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's finding beauty in things that aren't perfectly polished or symmetrical. It values the unadorned, the slightly flawed, almost a rebellion against the artificial.
So like the beauty in a cracked tea bowl or weathered wood.
Exactly that. And sabi is its partner, really. Sabi is about the beauty of age, that patina that comes with time. It has a sense of loneliness, maybe, but also profound simplicity.
That quiet dignity you find in old things.
Yes. The history etched into something. It's a deliberate move away from the purely new and shiny, or the perfectly symmetrical.
So this influenced the actual forms in art. Let's focus on perfect representation.
Absolutely. There's a kind of disregard for meticulous form. The focus shifts inward towards capturing the spirit, the essence, rather than just the surface details. Think about the one-corner style in painting, leaving huge parts of the silk or paper empty.
Right, that negative space becomes really active. It pulls you in.
It does. It suggests rather than dictates. And then there's asymmetry. You see it everywhere. Temple layouts, tea rooms.
Not the rigid balance you might expect.
No, it's more organic, like nature. There's this idea that Zen helped artists see things as perfect in themselves as they are without needing to fit some external standard of perfection.
Interesting. And where did these ideas really develop and spread?
The Zen monasteries were crucial, especially in the Kamakura and Muromachi periods. They weren't just places for monks to meditate.
They were cultural centers.
Very much so. Hugs of learning, art, philosophy. They really nurtured this whole aesthetic.
Now, here's something that seems, on the surface, a bit contradictory. Zen's connection to the study of Confucianism in Japan.
Yeah, it does seem paradoxical, doesn't it? Zen emphasizes bypassing the intellect, and Confucianism is this very structured ethical and social system.
So how do they connect?
Well, history plays a part. During unstable times in China, like the Sung Dynasty, Zen monks actually became key figures in bringing Chinese learning to Japan, and that included Confucian texts.
Really? So they weren't just importing Zen.
Not exclusively. They were actively involved in printing and promoting Confucian works, even Shinto texts. They played a big role in Japan's broader intellectual life.
Wow. So what allowed for that integration? Was there some philosophical common ground?
There was. The development in Song China of what's sometimes called the science of the Tao provided a kind of bridge. It was a philosophical framework that could accommodate both Zen's focus on inner realization and Confucianism's focus on social harmony and ethics.
Ah, okay. So it wasn't necessarily a direct blending, but a shared space.
Kind of. And you see figures like Nishin Shinsai in the 15th, 16th centuries, a major Zen scholar who was also deeply learned in Confucian classics.
So Zen provided a sort of philosophical depth or lens through which Confucian ideas were viewed in Japan.
That's a good way to put it. It offered a unique foundation for how those Confucian ethics and social structures were understood and adapted within the Japanese context, giving them a particular Japanese flavor.
It's like Zen provided the soil, and Confucianism grew in it in a unique way. Okay, let's shift gears to another massive area of influence, Zen and the samurai. That connection feels almost mythical.
It's definitely profound. The way Zen philosophy got woven into the way of the warrior Bushido is really quite extraordinary.
When you picture a samurai, you think discipline, control, stoicism almost. How did Zen contribute to that?
A huge part of it relates to the sword itself. It wasn't just a tool, it was seen as the soul of the samurai. And Zen's emphasis on transcending the fear of death was absolutely critical.
Because you can't hesitate in battle.
Exactly. Fear paralyzes. The samurai needed to cultivate this readiness to face death at any moment without fear for their lord or their honor.
Makes sense.
There's that great story about Tokimune, the regent facing the Mongol invasions in the 13th century. He sought out the Zen master Buku.
But deal with the fear.
Yes. How to face this overwhelming threat, this potential annihilation. Buku's Zen guidance helped him find a mental state where he could act decisively without being crippled by terror.
So it's about mastering the mind, not just the body.
Precisely. Achieving that state of presence, acting without hesitation, that's pure Zen, applied to a life or death context.
And this ties into the idea of no mind, right? We hear that a lot with martial arts.
Yes, the no mind or Mushin school. Sukahara Bokuden, the legendary swordsman, is associated with this. The core idea is that true mastery happens when you stop thinking about what you're doing.
You just act.
Your actions become spontaneous, intuitive, perfectly matched to the situation because your calculating, worrying mind isn't getting in the way. It's not empty-headedness, it's...
More like hyper-awareness without the analysis.
Exactly. A state free from mental clutter, allowing for instinct. Crucial for a warrior. There's that verse someone wrote. For the samurai to learn, there's one thing only, one last thing. To face death unflinchingly. That captures it.
Wow. Powerful. Let's dig a bit deeper into that no-mind concept, especially in swordsmanship.
Okay. Takuan Sush, the Zen monk, wrote a lot about this. He talks about the starting point in training as ignorance avidya. But here, ignorance means the mind getting stuck.
Stuck on what?
Stuck on the opponent, on your own sword, on the idea of winning or losing. It's a kind of mental entanglement.
Right, being caught up in thoughts.
Exactly. The goal is to move beyond that to what Takuran paradoxically calls the abiding stage of ignorance, which actually means the mind is moving freely, not stopping or fixating anywhere.
Fluid awareness.
Yes. Constant flowing awareness, not getting snagged on any one thing, which is vital when things are happening fast, right?
Absolutely. You need instant reaction.
And that leads to Mushin no Shin, the mind of no mind. The mind isn't fixed. Takuan uses the analogy of a mirror.
How so?
A mirror reflects whatever comes before it perfectly, but it doesn't hold on to the image, it doesn't grasp. The mind in Mushin should be like that. Present, reflecting, but not holding.
Fully present, but without getting attached.
Precisely. Or like the wind blowing through trees. It touches every leaf but doesn't stop at any single one. That kind of fluidity is key for combat.
There's that story about the simple bow before Qui-Gon, isn't there? That seems related.
Yes, exactly. The person who, without complex thought, just offers this pure, wholehearted bow to the bodhisattva of compassion. Their mind isn't cluttered, so the action itself becomes direct and powerful.
Self-conscious action.
Right. It shows how getting the intellect out of the way can sometimes lead to a more effective outcome. Bukoku Kukushi's poem about the scarecrow captures this, too.
The scarecrow.
Yeah, the scarecrow in the field. It guards the rice, doesn't it? But it has no intention, no conscious effort. It just is there, and its presence fulfills its function effortlessly. That's a metaphor for no mind.
That's a great image. So in training, what are the big mental traps to avoid?
Yagi Tajima no Kamimu no Nori, another key figure, talked about diseases of the mind in swordsmanship.
Diseases, like what?
Things like wanting desperately to win, being terrified of losing, focusing on showing off your techniques, or trying to trick the opponent. Any attachment that fixes the mind.
So it's about letting go of the ego, essentially.
Very much so. It's mental discipline as much as physical skill. True mastery comes from that place of mental freedom.
And the ultimate state.
It's sometimes described using the metaphor of the sword of Taya. In that state, the usual distinctions we make, self versus other, life versus death, they just dissolve.
Wow, complete unity.
A state of effortless, intuitive action where those dualities don't exist. It sounds almost mystical, but it's the pinnacle they aimed for.
It's amazing how these principles echo elsewhere, too. Didn't you mention a bullfighter?
Right. That anecdote about Juan Belmonte, the Spanish bullfighter from the Atlantic Monthly in the 30s. He apparently trained himself mentally to face the bull without fear, without calculation.
Same principle, different arena.
Exactly. That same core idea of mental freedom leading to peak performance. And you see glimpses of this no-mind state all through Zen poetry, too.
Those short, evocative verses.
Yeah, they capture that sense of spontaneous action, mind unburdened, and that story of Teshin easily beating the Ken master.
Right, the master focused only on technique.
And Teshin just overwhelmed him with spirit, with that cultivated mental state. It shows mastery goes way beyond just the moves.
It really hammers home how Zen wasn't just some add-on. It fundamentally shaped how the Japanese approached, well, almost everything. Art, ethics, combat.
Absolutely. As we've kind of walked through, Zen really permeated the culture. It influenced aesthetics, what people found beautiful, ethics, how they thought about right action, and these very practical, demanding disciplines like swordsmanship.
So it gave people this unique way of seeing the world, didn't it? Valuing direct experience over just thinking about things, finding beauty in simplicity and imperfection.
And always pushing towards transcending those dualities like winning-losing, self-other that can trap the mind.
Which brings us to a final thought, maybe something for you, the listener, to consider.
Yeah. Think about these core ideas we've discussed, cultivating that no mind or mental fluidity, embracing imperfection, finding the extraordinary in the ordinary. How might those perspectives, nurtured by Zen in Japan for centuries, offer something valuable for navigating your own life, your own challenges, your own pursuits today?